Hi, creative friends. This is Soraya, and thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to do something just a little bit different today. I am just going to be speaking from my heart, from the top of my head. I don't have any notes. And basically what happened is when I posted my video part 2 of my studio logs, and I always listen to my videos before I post them, I was kind of thinking that maybe some of what I said about my healing ancestral trauma art journal, maybe some of it came off in a bit of a judgmental way, and that is never, never, never my intention. So I will explain what I mean in a second, but I will get back to this piece over here, which I've been looking at it before I turn the camera on, and I am just loving it more and more and more each time I look at it, which just solidifies to me the importance of combining like 2 or more art elements into one piece. And what I did with this one is I combined my collage with composition, and it's just so beautiful. Like, I was thinking initially I would do a portrait over top of it, but the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking I'm either just going to leave it as it is because I really love the design and compositional elements, or I could turn it into a still life. Like, I'm already kind of picturing certain things in my head. But anyways, I will make another video and get back to this, but I think that this is really important. And when I first started my YouTube channel, I had like very pointed notes and a lot of preparation, and I try to do that for each video. Well, obviously not the more kind of videos where it's simply and I don't mean simply, but where the videos where I'm doing like part 1, part 2, part 3, I'm doing a still life, I'm doing a portrait or whatever, those are more like I can't control where that goes. But other videos where I'm specifically talking about a certain thing like color or composition or whatever, I try to stick to my points. But there is a time for that, and there's also a time to just like open up my heart and my soul and my process. And it might be messy, it might be repetitive, it might be illogical, but that is part of the creative process for me. So anyways, getting back to the studio log and my healing ancestral trauma art journal, in my last video I said I would have no interest in making a very sanitized version of my healing ancestral trauma art journal. That is true. I have no interest in doing that. That would be a waste of my time and energy. That being said, it does not mean that if somebody else wanted to work in a way where they only presented, say more sanitized versions of their family line, if they only presented the good stuff, that doesn't mean that that does not have value, because it most certainly does. Like, I really wish, oh my goodness, like if I had say my maternal grandmother, like if she had kept a scrapbook of even a very sanitized version, if she had just written down some things that I could go back and look at, that would be so helpful to me. It would be like gold. And I could see, even by the things that she chose to write, the things that she chose to leave out. So even if she had made a very sanitized, like a scrapbooking type of thing with some photographs and some writings, or like a journal, a diary, or whatever, like even if it was very if it wasn't even like all accurate, that would still give me a lot of information. And I wish that I had something like that, but I don't. So I'm not saying that, working in that way is not valuable. It most certainly is. And getting into like healing ancestral trauma, there are people in our ancestral line that maybe they are not capable, they are not required, they don't have the capacity to do the healing work of seeing everything accurately and truthfully. And that doesn't mean that they don't have value and a place in the line. And there's no judgment in me saying that. And to be quite honest with you, like say 15 or 20 years ago, I most likely could not have been able to do this deep work that I can do now. Before I started this journal, I very, very specifically asked, like I lit a candle, I did intentions, I did a lot of like journaling, like writing, and I specifically asked, I want to see the unvarnished truth. I want to see the ugliness. I want to see the things that nobody else has faced before. I want to know these things. I am able to hold them without judgment. That was the intention I set. I'm gonna look at it from the aerial view without placing blame, without saying this is right, this is wrong. Oh my God, how did this even happen? Blah blah blah. So I set all of these intentions. I could not have done that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Maybe if I had made this journal at that time, I wouldn't even call it healing ancestral trauma. I might have named it something completely different. But, even by me calling it healing ancestral trauma, that's how I've been referring to it thus far. That implies, a different intention than if I had to say, name it something different. That doesn't mean that that body of work doesn't have value. So I did not mean to be judgmental by any stretch of the imagination. I think that any work that anybody does is valuable, and even a very sanitized version of events. Say, I'm just making this up in my head. Just say my grandmother had, my grandmother was not literate, to be honest with you. She was pulled out of school when she was very, very young because, she came from a very traditional family. And even though she was born in South Africa, she was very, cloistered and raised in an environment as if she was still in India. So she was pulled out of school very early, got an arranged marriage when she was 15. So she could not read and write. And she was very embarrassed about it all her life. But what I'm saying is, like, if she had just done the most basic things, that would be so helpful to me. I would have treasured it and appreciated it, and I could read between the lines, because the things that we reveal in our, say if we were going to make a journal like this, the things that we reveal are just as instructive sometimes as the things that we don't reveal. So even if she had made a very sanitized version, I could be like, oh, there's information I could glean from that. Very valuable information, by the way. And what happened with my grandmother is, as she got older and older, she passed away when she was about 83, but in her 70s, she started becoming more open about her life and everything that had happened to her, and she would talk to whoever would listen, and I would listen. I don't know if anybody else would, but I was so fascinated about a myriad of things. And so she told me, like, I had no idea that her mother had gotten married at the age of 11, but she started sharing more and more of her life, that maybe she couldn't when she was younger because she felt constrained by cultural norms and values and restrictions. So anyways, I'm sorry for that big song and dance, but I just wanted to reiterate that there is no right or wrong way to work. So when I said it would be a complete waste of my time to make a very sanitized version, that is true for me and for where I am in my journey right now. Yes, it would absolutely be a complete and utter waste of my time to make a very sanitized kind of art journal right now, to say, oh, well, yeah, and, just paint a pretty picture that really didn't exist, not to say that there isn't value in doing that kind of work, and not to say that there isn't value in the positives of my culture, but I am not interested in that, honestly. I am interested in the dross, as Dr. Estes would say, because that's where the gold is for me, where I am in my journey right now. So I will leave it at that. If there are any questions or concerns, then please leave them for me. But yeah, any way that you work is valuable and good. And if you want to make something that you would pass down the generations, in whatever way you are able to right now, then that is a good thing. That's just not where I am. So I was just expressing where I am in that process. Now, speaking about this journal in particular, if I had not worked in my studio log like 8 or 9 years ago, when I went to Oaxaca, I first found out about the studio log working in this way. My practice has evolved, it has deepened, it has, changed. My line of questioning has changed, my interests have changed, I have changed. The way I work has changed. So if I had not done all of this work and continue to do all of this work, and even with healing, even with the videos I make with archetypal psychology, Jung, delving into our beliefs, etc., etc., I would not be able to make this journal, which is why I always stand by the fact that everything is related. I am a human being, so my childhood, my healing, my ancestral traumas, my belief systems, everything, just my life experiences, all of it is how I am able to make this body of work. Because to be quite honest with you, with my beliefs and the way I was raised, partially being cultural, partially being just part of all dysfunctional families, they do not want secrets to be told. Everything is hidden. Everything is kept really tightly controlled. However that's done, either overtly or by fear or by shame, you're not allowed to talk about what happened. And this is just a rule across all dysfunctional families, no matter what culture they're from, no matter what the dysfunction is. The dysfunction could be drug abuse, drug addiction, gambling, alcoholism. I mean, there's a slew of things. But the number one rule is don't talk. Don't talk, don't feel, don't tell anybody outside the family. You have your loyalties to the family. Those are belief systems that are programmed into all dysfunctional families, into the children, and unless you confront those beliefs, dismantle them, replace them with new beliefs, you are going to that's going to be like a program running a loop. You're not even going to question it, you're just going to take it as truth. So if I had not done all of that work, not to say that it's complete, it is an ongoing process, I would not be able to do work like this, because I wouldn't want to talk about there's arranged marriages in my lineage, and there are child marriages, there's domestic violence, there's a slew of things, okay, that I would not feel comfortable talking about. But because I've done that work, I am able to talk about it quite freely, quite openly, without feeling shame, without feeling a sense of fear, like, oh my God, like, are people gonna judge me? Is somebody gonna, say something to me? Those are like childhood fears that are valid when we are children, but, I'm not a child anymore. So I have healed those wounds, which is allowing me to do this work. So when I talk about, healing and creativity and all of those things, for me, in my life experiences, they are all joined. And somebody made a comment to me, a very cogent comment on my Instagram. They DM'd me and were, just talking about healing and art journaling, etc. And the thing is, if somebody is going to talk about, using art journaling for healing purposes, um, a teacher cannot talk about anything more than they have experienced themselves. So, just say, like, if I am not willing to plumb to the depths of my darkness, my shadow, my despair, my sufferings, my wounds, etc., I am probably not going to be able to talk about it. Like, if I can only go 1 foot deep and there are, like, 1,000 feet, to the in this analogy, to the water, well, I can only talk about what I've experienced. So if I've only gone 10 feet deep, I can only talk about 10 feet. I can't talk about 100 feet because I haven't plumbed the depths of my own ocean, my own emotions, my own experiences, sufferings, healing, etc. So we can only talk about or express or heal the our ability and our capacity that we have for plumbing those depths. So I hope I'm making sense. So when I said, like, yeah, 20 years ago, I could not have done this work. I wouldn't have been able to do this work. I couldn't have met this work where it wants to meet me. But because I have, been chipping away over, of so many years, I've been doing therapy, I've been doing morning pages, I've been doing journaling, I've been doing, like, God, I've been doing a lot. Not constantly, but it's just part of my life. Like, it's not something you do every day, but it just becomes a part of your life where there's always work to be done. You're never done. But that being said, it's allowed me to explore this journal, particularly this way of working, in different ways that I couldn't have done 20 years ago. So anyways, you guys, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this has made sense. I hope that this has been inspiring. And I have an adage, start where you are, use what you have. Because my very first art journal was kind of a diary that kind of accidentally turned into an art journal. I didn't know art journaling was a thing. There was no internet. I was in a very, very abusive situation at home. I was a teenager. My very first art studio was actually my art journal slash diary, which I didn't even know was my art studio, but it was portable. Like, I would take it with me everywhere. I didn't want to leave it at home because there were no boundaries at home. I was concerned that somebody would go into my diary and read it, which had happened before. So I just am a big believer of start where you are, use what you have. Do not try to be anywhere else but where you are. I just find that to be counterproductive. It is a hindrance. It's going to whenever I've done that, it's always stalled my path. But when I just own where I am, okay, this is where I am. I'm 15 years old. I'm in a really horrible situation. I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have anybody I can depend on. I don't have a lot of money to go and buy all this art supplies, etc., etc. But you know what? I had my little diary slash art journal. It was a diary. It morphed into an art journal, and I just carried it around with me everywhere. It was like my best friend, and I became so attached to it, like it was just a part of me. And yeah, that's where I start. That's where we start. We start wherever we are. There's no shame in not knowing stuff, in not having stuff, in not being able to be at point B. If we're at point A, we'll just be at point A, and yeah, eventually we will get to another point. But right now we've got to start where we are. We can't pretend that we're at point B when we're at point A. That's just going to add more burdens to us because we're not really at point B. So yeah, it's kind of like trying it's kind of like trying to get from Paris to Amsterdam, but you're pretending that you're not really in Paris, and you are like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're pretending you're not where you are, and you're pretending like, oh, I want to get to Amsterdam, but I don't want to be in Paris, and I'm just pretending I'm in Paris, but really I'm in London. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry that if that analogy doesn't really make sense, but it's a very good analogy, because if you are in point A, if you're in Paris and you want to get to point B, which is Amsterdam, you've got to say, okay, I'm in Paris. I don't have any money. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't have a map, but I want to get to Amsterdam, but I am in Paris. So the route you're going to make from Paris to Amsterdam is going to be different than if you're going to say to yourself, well, I am in Paris, but I don't really want to be in Paris, so I'm going to pretend I'm in London. Now, how do I get from London to Amsterdam? And do you see what I'm saying? It's just not a good way to be. Anyways, I'm sorry about all this, these analogies. Maybe they don't make sense. Maybe they do make sense. I don't know. They make sense to me. But anyways, you guys, so I just wanted to let you know that this practice of me having a studio log has been the single most important thing for me to strengthen my visual language and to become more confident in my visual language and my art and all the art elements like color, line, composition, etc., etc., it has been the single most important practice that I have done that has allowed me to be where I am today in terms of being able to create a journal like this, which is very honest and truthful, and something that has been a gift to me in so many ways. Like, I am still discovering all the many countless gifts that are coming out of me working in this way. So anyways, you guys, if you have any questions or comments, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope I haven't been rambling on too much. And oh, another thing is, if you guys wanted to share any of this, because I did get a comment of somebody wanting to share parts of my my questions for my studio log, absolutely. If it's going to help you or help anybody else, if you want to take them as is, modify them, just use them as a seed to make your own questions and lines of inquiry, yeah, sure, go ahead. So thank you so much for listening to my ramblings, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.